What does it mean to really have it all, and why so many high achieving parents feel exhausted and unfulfilled even when their lives look successful on paper? In this episode, I sit down with Doris Walsh, a coach for high achieving parents who has spent 20 years in a demanding corporate world. After leaving her role in the oil and gas industry, Doris navigated, like most of us, family challenges, multiple international moves, and her own evolving identity, ultimately redefining what fulfillment and authenticity mean for high achieving parents. Doris shares her powerful story of transition and how she's helping ambitious moms break free from burnout and comparison traps. If you are ready to rethink your relationship with success, parenting, and your own values, and want actionable ways to lead, parent, and live without guilty or apology, hit play and join us for a conversation that's honest, practical, and inspiring, because Doris shares so many golden nuggets that you can take away and immediately apply into your life or business. Welcome to Step Into Your Voice, a podcast for women and business moms who are ready to stop dimming their light and start showing up with courage, clarity, and confidence. I am your host, Nina Makariam, and let's get started. Hi, Doris. Welcome to Step Into Your Voice. I am so excited to have you as a guest today. We connected after a networking call, and I really felt a strong connection, a lot of similarities, and this is why I wanted to have a conversation with you today. Welcome.
Thank you. Such a pleasure.
And let's start a little bit with your story, because I know that you worked in corporate for 20 years and then you transitioned to coaching high achieving parents. So tell us a little bit about this transition, when you felt that there was this light bulb moment maybe that made you realize that, hey, what I'm doing right now, this job doesn't work for me. Maybe I should do something else.
So there really wasn't a light bulb moment, I would say. It was this underneath feeling. There was this constant, I would call quiet nagging at me. When did it happen? It started after the children were born. I've got two. I had them quite close together and things change. Obviously life changes when you've got kids, right? None of us are ever prepared for it, right? But something shifted in me. I've always been very corporate minded, very ambitious, and I was still ambitious with kids, but something else was happening. So we had the kids and I was missing something. I didn't know what it was. Life goes on and life is very comfortable and very nice, but I lost a bit of a spark. That's the best way to describe it.
Tell us a little bit, what was your job? What were you working?
Okay, so I worked in corporate. Background is business and marketing. I worked in the oil and gas sector for a big multinational, and I moved different roles. I moved up. I would say I'm not an expert in anything. I'm more of a jack of all trades. So I've done stuff from marketing to finance to logistics to business development, strategy, shipping. I've even worked in a refinery for 2 roles where I was blending the oil that goes into cars and planes, and I'm not a chemical engineer. So I've had a really varied career, which was a lot of fun. And it was really amazing experience until I started this little bit of, is this all there is? And as I said, that came after kids and then COVID hit. And I know for a lot of people, COVID was oh my God, a reset in some ways. For me, I met my husband at work. So just before COVID hit, we were due to move to the US. That was the plan. And then all of that got, everyone stay. And the company we worked for at that point was doing some restructuring. and the opportunity came up for kind of voluntary redundancy. And actually, my role was in the redundancy. So initially, I was a bit of a shock, but then I was like, "Oh, this is kind of exciting." It felt like an opening. It felt like a door was opening, and I was like, "I want to push it." So I kind of like, "Yeah, can I go, please?" Right? There was a nice package to go with that. My husband was like, "No, no, 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 put your hand down. You don't want to go. You want to stay. You want to stay." Right? Because we had the salaries, had the benefits, and everything was really comfortable. So why would you ever want to leave that? But I was like, "Oh, but I want to go." And he's like, "No, no, you don't." I was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah." So eventually I left. And I left, we got headhunted, and we then had a little adventure to Greece because his job was in Greece. And I was like, yeah, let's go. Because we originally planned to go to the US. That didn't happen. Like, let's go. And our kids, we've always moved our kids from a young age. We had international careers type kind of thing. You know, the kids are born in the UK, then we moved to Belgium, then we moved back, and then we moved to Greece, and now we're currently back in the UK. They've never really lived in any one place with the children for anything much more than 3 years. So that was perfect timing for us, right? So let's move to Greece. I didn't have to work. I had to do a lot of logistics, you know, finding a house and settling the kids in school and learning all the stuff that happens, you know, that we needed to do in terms of paperwork in Greece. And they really love the paperwork, by the way, in Greece. And I didn't have to work, which was a bonus, but also didn't feel comfortable for me because I've kind of worked since I was 12 years old, right? From in my parents' Chinese restaurant and takeaway, and all the way through studying and then in corporate. And I thought, okay, so what do I do? Because I'm not very good at sitting still and not doing anything. Took myself on this whole personal development journey and to figure out what Doris wants to be when she grows up. I was 45, 46 at that point. I was like, I'm going to figure it because I never knew. In corporate, there was this little tap on the shoulder, or this is the next role, this is a good position, or whatever else. I never really had massive input into where my career went. So I thought, I'm going to figure it because Doris has no idea what she wants to be when she grows up. So, and that's what I did. And, you know, through different things, kind of coaching people through it, I didn't intentionally go into it. I kind of said, no idea, let's go play, right? Let's go find out. And it led me to coaching. And that's kind of what I do now.
So amazing. And I can relate a little bit to your story because I also was a stay at home mom. And I enjoyed that time. It was my decision. But then, as soon as we put our kids into daycare, because I wanted them to be surrounded by kids their age, I really felt a little bit of emptiness because I didn't feel I was doing something useful, something meaningful. Later, I did see it as an opportunity, but back then I thought that something is wrong with me because I cannot figure it out what I'm supposed to do next. I loved the way you said it. It was an open door. So just, yeah, let's go and play and just figure it out as you go because you don't have to have all 10 steps laid out in front of you. You just need one step. What do I do next? And then how did you ended up being a coach for high achieving parents?
Okay, so I suffered a couple of what I would call traumas early on in Greece. And through talking with various people, people kept mentioning to me that, hey, Doris, are you a coach? I've always loved connection in terms of really getting to understand people beyond the surface. People kept saying, asking me, it's like, Doris, are you a coach? Are you a coach? And I'm like, no, I'm not a coach, right? And I didn't really at that point know what coaching really was. I'd had a career coach as I was transitioning out of corporate, but I was like, maybe that is not exactly what I want to do. I like the helping aspect. But similar like you, I was like, the next thing that I'm going to do has to really hit me, right? It has to feel fulfilling to me, right? I did a lot of great stuff in corporate, but it felt all kind of arm's length, you know? I was helping make them more productive. I was helping them make them more money. I was helping them become more efficient, right? All of this kind of stuff. But it never really touched anything inside me, right? I went obviously on a lot of training courses, but it was all about very job specific, not kind of more holistic about, hey, Doris, is this really calling to you? Is this really pulling you? And is this really making you happy? And that's what I wanted. I knew I wanted something different, didn't know what it was, but I wanted something that was fulfilling, that felt really good to me. And I would really enjoy it and be happy, right? I think for a long period of time up until that point, I kind of performed happiness. Does that make sense? On the outside, I was always smiling and I felt happy, but it always kind of came with a little bit of guilt and a little bit of resentment. And then at the same time, also a little bit of shame in terms of I had all the things of success, right? If you have a success checklist, I ticked it all, but there was still something missing. But then the other side is like, you know what? You've got so much. There are lots of people out there that don't even have a tenth of what you've got. And you're kind of complaining in my head that's not right. So I feel guilty about that, right? And I knew that I wanted to let go some of that. I just wanted to feel joyful. I guess up until the point, didn't really understood what that meant, but I know it exists, but I don't know how it feels. So when I came to coaching and then started exploring it a bit more, I was like, well, this feels nice. And I thought, can I do this? I don't know because I've never done it before. I've mentored people at work for sure. I've been kind of like a consultant before too, for sure. Right? Manage projects, all this kind of stuff. But have I ever really coached people up until that point? No. So I thought, okay, how do I do this? And yeah, I looked into it. I spoke with people who were coaches, executive coaches at that point, and I thought, yeah, I think I can do this. Right. So then I took myself off to a coaching school for a year. And then after that, then did my professional qualifications too. And then for me, it was all about building those real coaching skills. And then I know lots of coaches have lots of skills, but for me, it's always learning the tools so that for me, it kind of I have a foundation. It's like anything that I study, it's kind of like, I know the foundation, right? And then I can build on top of that. I never kind of wanted to get to anything without the kind of some training to ensure that I served my clients in the best way possible, I guess. That's always kind of me, it's kind of like, you wouldn't go to a doctor if they didn't have the qualifications. For me, it's kind of like, would I go to a coach who didn't have some sort of qualification or the experience or whatever else? So that's why I took myself to coaching school and then graduated and then set up my own business.
That's amazing. And do you work with clients from the UK or?
Everywhere, it doesn't matter. The joys of technology now, right? We can have clients anywhere. So I've had clients all over and it doesn't matter where they are, just depending on the time difference, really. For me, it's about the fit. I like to work with people that are open to trying something different. And I also know that the way that I coach and the person that I am might not be able to fit with people. It's like, there are 8 billion people on this planet. There are going to be a lot of those billions who will not like me. That's okay. Initially, when I first started, I go, "Oh, no, I want to coach everybody," right? Because, it is such an amazing process to go through and to be guided through, to open your eyes in a different way by just talking to someone. And it's not about judgment. It is not about you have to do it this way. When you're working in corporate or whatever, this is a process. You just got to do this. Just join the dots. Coaching, yes, there is a process, the coaching process, but it's very fluid. And what works for one client may not work for another client, right? And it's kind of like there's no real path. Wherever it goes is wherever the client places, right? There's some ways that maybe I got to put a hard stop, but hold on a second. You're sharing too many details. It's about you, right? It's not about the situation. It's about you. And it is that kind of freedom, freedom to try and do different things. But it's all about that openness of the client, right? Because I can only be as effective a coach based on how open and vulnerable the client is. If someone is really close, then there's nothing really that, well, there's certain things I can do, but I won't be able to help them make the transformation. And that's what I'm here for. I'm just helping people to transform their lives from where they are now to where they want to be.
I totally feel that if you are not open, then you are limited. You cannot help them more than they want to help themselves.
Yes.
And based on your experience and your work, how do you think that these high achieving moms, why do you think they feel exhausted, even if, as you mentioned, maybe they also check off all the boxes of success and still they feel exhausted despite all this success?
For most people, they are exhausted. Probably there's partly they're doing too much. Also, they are continually chasing for more success and they're always continually proving themselves. Proving in terms of, oh, I've got this promotion. Well, I've got to do really well in this, right? To show the CEO or whatever that I'm worthy of that position. So it's always this chase for something that is external to them. So that is the praise. Oh, well done, Nina, for doing this amazing project. Or it's the proving, oh my God, look, I got a pay rise. So now I can buy these things or do more exciting things or whatever else. It's this mental belief that I've got to prove my worth. Because if I don't prove my worth, I may not belong or I may not truly be loved. And actually, in the back of my head, I already feel as if I'm not enough anyway. They're always continuing trying to do more and more and more. And a lot of what they're doing more of is to please other people, not themselves, whether that is their bosses, whether that's their companies, whether it's their parents, whether it's their children, whether it's their partner, whether it's keeping up with Nina because Nina looks as if she's got everything under control, right? So I've got to do too. Although inside I'm thinking, shit, I'm literally this far away from falling down on my face. But no, I've got to do more because I can see Nina doing it all. So I've got to do it all too. So it's that kind of internal competition, not competition with you, but internal to myself. It's like, be the same. She's got two kids. I've got two kids. She works. I work. All the same things. So she doesn't look as if she's struggling. So why am I struggling? And it's that kind of comparison too.
Yeah, is something wrong with me? I mean, honestly, I ask myself this question so many times as a mom, as a business owner, because, yeah, as you say, we tend to look at other people, but we don't know the entire thing, the entire situation.
No, we don't. And we construct stories in our head about how I see you behave and how I see you do things. I'm like, oh, and then all the human emotions, whether that is admiration, whether it's envy, whether it's guilt or shame or whatever. I'm like, oh my God, she's so amazing. But like, I can only see what's on the surface. And based on my own personal experience, I will make stories up about what that means to me. You haven't done anything, Anina. You haven't done nothing. But I have just internalized all of that. And sometimes it's in a split second, and most of the time it's subconscious. You don't even realize you're doing this. It's making judgments of things that you see. And then you're like, oh, and then you measure it immediately also. Oh, is that good or is that bad? Or I got to do more? Or how come it's color? How come she can do it and I can do it? I'm just as intelligent or more intelligent. I've got more qualifications. I've got more. And it's like eternal comparison. You didn't ask. You didn't say, oh, Doris, you've got to compare yourself to me because you're not as successful as me. You never said any of that. But we do this subconsciously, immediately, a lot of the time, and we're not aware of it. And part of the reason of the exhaustion and to get rid of the exhaustion is actually be aware of what's happening. Not just here in your head, right? Because this is how we're taught at school. Be logical, be sitting in your brain, think, but actually bring it to your body and actually listen to your body to see how it feels. And then to make that awareness to say, hey, is what I'm doing really for me because it's aligned with the life that I want for me, my family, or whatever? Or am I doing this for my boss to say, give me a thumbs up or external approval? And then once you're aware of that, you can then have a choice. Do you want more external approval or do you want to live the life that you truly want? And ultimately, like you said earlier, I want to do whatever is truly important to me because we can always make more money. And you have a target, so you hit 1 million. what you done? It'll be 1.5 or 2 or 10 or 100 after that, right? Because those goalposts keep moving. Whereas I guess from me, it was that kind of moving more towards your values. What is really important to me and the values that I live by, so that it is not dependent on anyone else, only then dependent on me, because me and I'm really the only person that I can control. I can't control other people. I can't do things, right? And then just hope that the boss will see it my way, because he or she may not. Whereas if I do a job that I really enjoy and I know that I've done the best that I can possibly can, and the boss still says it's no good, I'm like, great, that's your opinion, but I'm not taking it personally because I did my best. So maybe it's just a brief that I was given wasn't clear enough. So now I can learn from that. So can I now sit down with your boss and say, hey, can we just be clear about what the deliverables were? Because initially your deliverables were ABC, and you're now telling me you were 1, 2, 3. Then, therefore, it's not because I am not enough, I didn't do a good enough job. It is the spec that was given to me wasn't quite right. Okay, that's a learning for me. Next time I'm going to get a project from you, I'm going to sit down really clearly with you and define it. There is no angst. There is no, oh my God, I've got to do really hard. Oh my God, I'm going to improvise it into, oh my God, I'm not going to get the next promotion, or I'm going to get sacked, or I'm going to not get a pay rise, or anything of that, that then sends you on this spiral of negativity for goodness knows for how long, that then also impacts how you then show up at home. I'm not saying that you can compartmentalize everything, you can't, but if you can know that I did the best that I can, and you trust yourself that you did, and you know who you are, then you're less dependent on things that are external to you, which means then life is easier because I know what it is that am. I know who I am. I know what I'm here to do, and I will do that to my best capability, to the skills that I've currently got. I will ask for help when I need it. And I know that what I can say yes or no to. I don't always have to say yes just because you're my boss, or you're more superior than me, or whatever else, or it's my parents, because we always continue to keep saying, yes, okay, of course, because we want to be seen to be nice. And I'm like, is nice really serving you? And if you being nice means that you have the happiest life, go and continue. But if it isn't, how about you just kind of stand back a little bit and see what would make you happy, truly happy, not just being nice. And this is all this kind of inner work that you do as a coach to really explore who you are. Because how much time do we get each year, or how much time do we take each year to sit there just with ourselves and really assess where we are at this current phase in life, what we're really happy with, what could require some improvement, what has changed? Because change happens and people think, all right, all these other 100 things that I've done before now, I've got to add this other 2 things now because they've changed. Now I've got 102 things to carry. We never drop anything off, right? And then it becomes 102 things become 110 things. And no wonder people are exhausted because we're not letting things go, because letting things go feels like failure. But things that you did in your 20s, why are you still doing it? If it doesn't apply to when you're in your 30s or your 40s and now 50, right? So it's kind of like, my life has changed. Why am I still carrying on things for the 20-year-old version of Doris that actually doesn't serve me anymore?
Yeah, but I feel it's so difficult to own who you are. First of all, to understand who you are, and then to own it and to stick to your values. Because, as you said, this means that maybe you will have to not necessarily reject, but you will have to be a little bit more specific with your priorities, with your relationships. And then you might not be perceived as nice. And there is always a people pleaser in us, and it's going to be difficult to do that.
And I think this is where the certainty comes, right, for yourself. And you really know who you are or who you want to be, then you can start. And the thing is that your values can change over time, right? Because my values very much in my 20s is probably different to where I'm now. But again, the question comes back to Nina. It's like, are you living your life for others, or do you really want to live your life for you? And this question is something that I only just in the past year did realize about myself. And I've been coaching for the past 5 years. Through coaching, you shed some layers and all this kind of stuff. You let things go. But there's that whole personal development is ongoing until we die. And like you say, it's that openness to kind of explore it. Because it is very difficult as a Chinese girl, all brought up in Western Europe, to a very conservative Chinese family, where loyalty and obedience equals safety and love. I wasn't verbally or physically hugged when I was a child because it wasn't something that my parents' generation did. Their version of love is you are obedient, you do as I say, you work hard, right? Then that equals love and safety. And then all that carries through to corporate life, and I've got to do more. Oh, it's my boss. Yes, of course. Yes, yes, yes. I've got to say yes, 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 yes all the time, right? And you're like, even though in my head, I'm like, why am I doing this piece of rubbish of work? It's not going to add anything. I'm still saying yes. I'm still fine because I've got to be nice. Oh, yes, 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 boss. Yes, boss. Yes, boss. Right? You get to a point you're like, I'm absolutely exhausted. And when you're not happy in one aspect and falls into all the other aspects of life, if you're not happy at work, you then take it out on your kids. Not intentionally, but it's that kind of like, I have held it so close together now for the past 10 hours at work. And all you want to do is relax and you go and get your kids from school and they start playing up or shouting or screaming or fighting. You're like, shut up. All I want is that 5 minutes. And you're shouting at your kids. They didn't do anything wrong. They're just being kids. So, and this is where, are you being nice for the sake of being nice because you're uncomfortable with not being nice? And if there is anything that happens to you that is a little bit uncomfortable, there's probably something behind it. How open are you then to discover what that is behind it? And it is so people's tendencies. It's that simple question. Do you want to live their life or do you want to live your own life? And you know what? When you change, people around you will change. And for some people, they will be triggered because they've always loved the Nina like this.
This version of you.
Yes. And when you change, it kind of shines a mirror into, oh, well, this makes me uncomfortable. And people keep saying, oh yeah, change is good. Actually, no change is good, but no change is better. That's we're not comfortable where we are. And people don't like discomfort because it feels unsafe to them. But it's, like I said, you're not living their life unless you want to. And I did for a very long time. I had no idea that I was living my mum's life or what she wanted me to do. Right? It seems so logical. And it was very nice, very good for a very long period of time until I realized that I wanted more. And not everything that I wanted was aligned with what my mom and dad wanted or wished for me. But again, it's that kind of like, yeah, but mom and dad, that's not to say then I get angry at them because they forced me to live this path or do this thing or whatever. It is that kind of like, okay, I'm aware of there's some differences here. I accept. I just accept that they are different to me and I'm different to them. Just accept. And then now it's down to me. It's my responsibility to then choose. Do I still do what my parents want? Or do I say, I got to do what I want? Because living my parents' life doesn't fill me with a huge amount of joy. I want to live my life because I've only got one life. I don't get to come back. I don't get a redo. There's no reset that says, oh, by the way, I'll get to come back, right? Do it again. If we did, yeah, I'll try anything. But I've only got one life. I have no idea how much longer I've got. And would I rather die knowing that I've lived the best life that I could have for myself and I chose? Or would I be happier going to die living the life that my parents wanted me to live? And that may be different for different people. I know what my answer is, but it's for you, right, to decide what your answer is.
Yeah, as they say, the biggest regret of dying people is that they didn't live their life to the fullest. And yeah, maybe this is what I did, living in that old version that was pleasing the people around them. And I also was raised in obedience. And I don't blame my parents because they did their best. They did what they learned from their parents. And I'm just grateful because I am now able to see that there is another way of doing things. And I can decide. Maybe I do a combo of both because sometimes obedience is also needed. You cannot let your kids run your life. I mean, yes, they are meant to push our limits, our boundaries, but this doesn't mean that they can run our entire life. And another thing that came up for me, and I believe that for other parents, is this imposter syndrome that really tries to sabotage our ambitions. What is your way of dealing with it so we as mothers can do our best and let our brilliance shine? Because I feel that as a mother, there are some things, innate things that we can do, but also sometimes we can hear a lot of advice, especially now you watch social media, YouTube, all the movies, and you can get overwhelmed. And then also, as you said, you need to pay attention to what's important, but maybe what's important to you is not important to me. Maybe you want, or another mom wants to build a career, and that's perfectly fine. If she wants to work in a corporate job, maybe she is meant to do that thing. But if I decide to go a different route, then what's important for her is not important for me. So, how do we find our brilliance and stop taking into account this imposter syndrome that comes up so often?
Mm. For me, everything kind of starts with awareness. If you are aware that you feel uncomfortable in certain situations, whether that's imposter syndrome or anything else, is to just acknowledge it. Right? It says, right? And the thing is that that's the thing, right? It's as simple as when children, are being playing up, right? And they are suddenly get really, really angry. It is as simple as changing the wording. So instead of, oh, I've got a really angry child because he just now had a temper tantrum, actually, it's only right here, right now. 30 minutes ago, he was the most beautiful, happy boy. So I don't have an angry child. My child at this moment is shouting and screaming and seems upset. So it's the words that we use for ourselves. So if even the same with imposter syndrome, it's like I go, you know, I don't think I'm qualified for this. And then it's that kind of like, why do I think that? The boss, I just got this promotion. I obviously, someone out there believes I've got the right skills and qualities for this job. So why do I not believe it? What is it within yourself? And then part of it is that kind of, oh, I'm feeling uncomfortable at this moment with this job. Question is, why do you think that? What is it particularly about the role or the thing that you're doing that you're feeling uncomfortable about? And then it's that kind of dissection of, is it because you're working with people who have bigger job titles than you, right? Because they're all VPs or whatever else, and you're a manager, for instance. And so you perceive them to be so much more intelligent or so much higher up in corporate than you. Or is it because you believe that you lack some skills or some knowledge? Instead of lumping everything together, it's just the kind of fine areas that you're uncomfortable with, because there will be highly unlikely that everything doesn't fit. Because if everything doesn't fit, you wouldn't have gotten that job. But it's a simple thing of, when people, typically women, look at a resume or a job description, they want to fill 100%, right, that they meet every single criteria that's laid up before they're comfortable putting in their application, right? Do the same thing with a man. They'll be like, 60% and I'll apply. No one is ever going to be 100% ready for anything. And to get around it is just to, one, be awareness and acknowledge that there may be some feelings of trepidation, of anger, of uncertainty, anxiety. But actually, we have that for many things in our life, right? Not just particularly here, but we have just suddenly made this to be so big. And then underneath of that is that kind of, what is the real fear? What is the real fear here? The real fear, most likely, is that I'm actually not as good as I think. And then the question is, but I've been successful at so many things in my past that I didn't know when I've started day one. By 3 years in, I'm the resident expert. So, yes, who starts being a master on day one? No one. Everyone has a process. Everyone has to do learning. So, and it's that kind of being kind to yourself. Just because you've been, got something or doing something, you're like you say, you're a business owner, starting as a coach. How did I know? Was the fear about being successful in this? Yes, of course it was. But I know that this is what I want to do. I know for anyone, whether it's your own business or in a career, you know that this is what you want to do. You know that you're going to give it the right energy, you're going to give it time, and you're going to learn. Because like anything else, the typical thing is like, if you want to become a master at anything, you've got to spend 10,000 hours on it, right? No one comes out of the womb saying become a concert pianist. How many hours do you have to sit at a piano to become master pianist? Same with the business owner. If you've never run a business before, you've got to learn. But the thing is that you don't always have to do it by yourself. It is not becoming an island for those people who feel that kind of person. It's like there are other people around you, right, who can help. But what does it say in your head when you put your hand up and say help? For me, initially when I did that, I was like, you're weak to ask for help. You're not good enough, right? If you put your hand up and say that you need help, that is absolutely bullshit. Not everyone is an expert at everything that they do. And it's to say, hey, actually, and recognize the fact that, hey, maybe I do need help here. I can take all of this, but I need some help here and I need some help here. And I keep going back to how good do you feel when someone asks you, hey, Nina, can you just give me 15 minutes of your time and help me with this? And if it's something that you can help with, you're like, of course I can. Not a problem. And how good do you feel, right, when you can help me do something? But I don't put my hand up to give other people the same opportunity to help me. That's a bit selfish, isn't it? Right? So that is what I want to help with people. So kind of like, it is okay to ask for help. Doesn't mean that you don't do anything. Try and figure out, all this kind of stuff. But I say, hey, I'm just not an expert at this. I need your expertise, right? Because I know you've done it in this prevert and I just want you to help me with this. But you bring people in, you acknowledge where you have room to grow, you acknowledge the things that you may still have to learn. But if you show the willingness and you're going to put the time in to try it and to learn it, that's all anyone can do. Because no one comes in 100% prepared for everything. It is impossible because things will change. Things that were happened 20 years ago don't happen now anymore because of either technology, the environment, the state of the economy, or, what they're being taught, which is all there is. And it's kind of just embracing it. Just acknowledge that it's uncomfortable at this moment in time, but you're still going to do it instead of hiding. It's that kind of courage, right? Yes, it's uncomfortable because it's something new, but you've got plenty of experience behind you because you don't get to where you are right now without probably a whole lot of skills that you've already had before that can help you with this. Like starting your own business and, you've had 2 kids. What have you learned from bringing up 2 kids that you can just cut across into running a business? Yeah, there's so many things that we learn, but then because we classify and I say, oh, but that's kids. So it doesn't apply to business, right? I'm like, no. Actually, what you learn with kids is obviously most of the time applicable to business, but it doesn't typically translate the other way around, right? What I learn in business, you may not want to bring home. Sitting your kids down as if they're in a meeting doesn't work, right? But being able to handle the kids and their emotions and tag teaming and making sure that they don't fight and all of that conflict resolution, totally directly applicable to work. They're just bigger kids. They have bigger vocabulary and hopefully they don't cry not easily as kids, right? And that's it. It's that kind of stepping back and saying, hey, do you know what? I've got this. And that's the thing. It's that self-trust. It's a self-trust and self-belief in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, it's going to be very difficult for others to believe in you.
I love so much what you shared here because I never asked myself, why do I feel this? Like, what's the real fear here? Because what I tried to do every time I had this feeling that I'm not good enough, I was just trying to put it, under the rug and try to maybe say, I'm the best doing this and this. But it didn't work because I was not doing that inner work. As you said, you need to sit with it and acknowledge it. I was not doing that. I was just trying to get rid of it.
Rid of it, yeah. And so avoiding it doesn't typically work, because typically what happens is that the actual problem, if it is is that challenge or that problem, becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. It is easier to kind of face it straight on and say, hey, okay. And for me, typically the whole avoiding thing comes around when I'm doing things that I don't really enjoy or that I perceive to be difficult or scary. So then I hide. So, for instance, when I first started my business a couple of years ago, I was like, oh, how do I get clients? Right? Because, oh, I'm a coach. Come, 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 come. Nobody knew me. So I had to go and do some marketing, become visible. Oh, how do I do that? And visibility was something that I was so not comfortable with, because being Chinese, your head stays below the parapet. You just do 100%. That's the baseline, right? 1,000%. And you give it your all. There's the whole loyalty, but visibility, sticking your head up. No, no, no. You just say yes and no, then you do everything, right? So now doing it by myself, I was like, okay, had a look and who I wanted to coach and the type of people that I would know I would resonate with. And LinkedIn was out of all the social platforms, I was like, oh, that's probably the most likely platform. But the first post I did took me 4 months, Nina. 4 months, because it was difficult for me and I hid. And then what did I do? Oh, these are these other things that I could learn and do. And it makes me feel good because I'm learning, yes, how to create an email marketing list and how to attract clients by writing these and the writing thing. And you're learning all these things that make me feel good, but I'm still not visible, because that was my goal, to become visible. Doing things just in my own little space, not talking to other people, just absorbing, isn't going to make me visible. What do I do? So this whole small thing, instead of just thinking about it and saying, actually, how can I make this fun? Because for me, it was like, oh my God, there's a billion people, and oh my God, they're all going to hate me, and I've got nothing to say, and I'm not special, and who the hell am I? I was like, I'm just here to share my story. I'm not here to say that I'm the best, best at everything. I'm not. I just want to show up as me. And if people like it, they like it. But they don't like it, they don't like it. But, we catastrophize. Oh my God, it's so big and it's so important and it's so massive, right? And I like, instead of, how about we just spend a minute and just start small? What would I say if I was speaking to just one person, and if I was to introduce myself to just one person? As if you're going out in the street, right? You see a lot of people and you just smile, say hello. How about we take it like that? Instead of making it so big first and say, look, actually, it's probably not. What about if the opposite was true? So say, for instance, it's so big and it's billion people. How about the opposite? It's just one person and it's tiny. How would you show up then? And this is what I sometimes use. It's kind of like, if it feels so scary, what is the total opposite? If it felt really comfortable and easy. And how about I face it that way and then say, this is what I'm going to do. So this is where hiding underneath, it just creates more noise, and it does eventually then become bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Because 4 months in, I'm like sitting myself and I'm really now beating myself up mentally. You have friggin' wasted 4 months of your life and you've got nothing to show for it. And then when I eventually clicked the it's post now, it was a much bigger thing. But I still needed to go and take that step. Yeah, I'm just going to write something. It doesn't really matter what it is. Just write something. You know what? I pressed it. It was as if nothing happened. Nothing happened.
Everything it's in our head.
Yeah. And the thing is, nothing is ever final. Nothing is ever, that's it. If it doesn't work out, it's death. You can always change it, right? And that's the thing, LinkedIn, it didn't work out. Actually, I didn't write it. You can delete it. It isn't because I went in there and, shouted at you and bullied someone or whatever. I was just trying it out. And that's the thing. And that's where I say, my world now is making things more fun. When I start feeling uncomfortable or makes me kind of go, oh, really uncomfortable, it's like, how can I make this fun? Or what is it that I need right now to look at this differently? Right. So the opposite effect, right? If I make it to be so big, but actually the opposite of it is actually doesn't even cause a ripple, what would you do? Well, just go and do it. Just go do it. And the thing is that the more that you do, you start stepping outside your comfort zone. Right. And then the next step, the next action step that comes with it, it's not that big a step, it's just smaller. And everything after that just becomes, oh, okay, it's just what I do now. Now, for me pressing anything on LinkedIn, I'm like, don't think about it anymore, right?
And now you are learning Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. But the learning the Instagram is much less of a step now than when I first learned LinkedIn because I'm like, nothing happens. I know nothing happens. The only other thing is that the whole speaking thing, the whole camera thing, right, was a thing. But I'm like, okay, people don't like me, don't like the way that I sound, don't like the way that I speak, don't like the way that I look or whatever else. That's not my problem. That's your problem. You don't like it? This is me. This is all you're going to get. You don't like it? That's okay. And actually, that's self-selecting. From a business owner perspective, I don't want all these hundreds of thousands of people around me if I'm unable to help them. I'd rather have one person in my environment that I can help rather than millions of people that I can't help. And that's kind of like, okay, if people don't like me, that's great because they're never going to become a client. And if people do like me, they'll come in and then we'll see how we play. Let's make it fun.
And because we are both working moms from home, what is your approach when it comes to balance, work-life balance?
I have taken a real dislike to the word work-life balance because work-life balance to me has always means that you always have to sacrifice something to get something else, right? And that whole balance, the balance scale, is always wobbling. You can never get it equally balanced. I prefer work-life freedom. So I'm all about creating a life at work together and myself together that is free. So I can show up however I want at work at, that helps me be the best person in terms of a parent that I can be for my two kids. And I have fun at the same time. So it's not about, oh, I've got to do this. It's not compartmentalized, right? Work and life is, you can't say, oh, these 8 hours is allocated to work. Done. Right? It doesn't work like that when you're a business owner, right? Because something might happen at 9 o'clock at night. What you're not going to do is you may have to show up because we work in different time zones and all that kind of stuff, right? If you're working in a corporate office, it's slightly different, but most people, the work also happens after the kids go to bed. So is that real balance? I don't know. It's all about doing the things that I really want to do. And yes, there's always things that I don't enjoy, but try and minimize those. It's the kind of like do the things that show up the way I want. That's one thing that I have really noticed when I stepped out of corporate is I feel I have the freedom to truly express who I am because I had to hold a lot of me back when I was in corporate because I knew it wouldn't have been appreciated. And the times that I have showed it, I'm kind of like, Doris, less of that because I felt as if I had to put on a suit of armor to go to work. And most people will have, because the corporate culture will say that this is what you can do, this is what you can't do, and whatever else. I could never bring 100% of me to work. So now, okay, to be totally me, which is lovely. But it's that kind of being clear about what my non-negotiables are. So that whole kind of freedom is, okay, this is what's truly important and everything will just work around it. And yes, that means that sometimes I will have to work late and sometimes I have to get up early. But what's non-negotiable are these things. As long as these things happen, everything else is going to be okay. Nothing is ever going to be a disaster. And it's that being clear about my own boundaries and what I am willing or not willing to do. Right? As long as my priorities are these things, non-negotiable, the rest of it just makes it easy because I'm very clear then about what my priorities are and then align that with my values. It's a much easier way. So it's not time dependent. It's more about the energy that I bring to work and to my family. It just kind of stays that kind of constant energy. Right? It's not that suddenly drain after work and then the kids just get the bottom, when they come home from school and then I've got to cook for them and then I've got to change them. And then it's like kind of like coming out of work, the same level of energy when you go into work in the morning when I come out of work in the morning with the kids, it's still the same level. It makes life so much easier, so much more enjoyable. Doesn't mean my energy doesn't drop or something doesn't go wrong or whatever, but I'm able to bring myself back up and say, hey, actually, just because my email system didn't work the way that I want it to work, why do I allow it to destroy my evening with my children? It is not the end all and be all if my newsletter doesn't go out today. It can go out tomorrow or it can go out next week. It's not that big a deal. What is big a deal for me is that I have that connection every day with my kids and we sit at a dining table together every night for dinner because that's where I build a connection with my kids and my family. And the rest of it is saying like, wherever you get to decide.
Yeah, I used to beat myself for not having this clear separation between my work life and the rest of my life. Because, for example, if my washing machine is beeping, I'm going to deal with it in 30 minutes, in an hour, but it's still during my work hours. And also, I like to, as you mentioned, dinner with family. It's so important for me too. And I love a good homemade dinner.
Yeah.
And that's important to me. I value that. It brings me joy as well. And yes, if this means that after dinner I'm going to stay for a few more hours to work, it's my choice.
Yes.
And I like that.
And that's the thing, is that coming from making choices consciously rather than subconsciously? Because if you do it subconsciously, you just do it automatically and you're not really aware of what it is that you're doing. But like you say, it's that whatever you want to do. And the thing is that even if it work, right, even if we're working for a company, you still take most like an hour lunch break or you go out for a walk or go for a coffee break. We have breaks during the normal day already anyway, right? But when we're home, we're like, oh no, we've got to be strict because otherwise all this doesn't get done. But actually, what's really important is to classify all the things that there's so many things that we do that actually don't move the needle at all. But it makes us feel better if we do it, right? It's kind of like, how about I just do one thing every single day that moves my business forward? Just one, not 50, right? Just one, right? Do the most important things that say you've got your goals. This is what's going to move, not to hide behind the things that, oh yeah, but if I tidied up that spreadsheet that I'm using, right, it would make things a lot better. How's that going to get you more business in? How's that really move your business forward? Right? Because we're all business owners here, right? Ultimately, we want more business. But yes, there's certain things, but I have also got to make sure that I look after myself. I don't forget yourself in any of this. Actually, out of all of it, you, is the most important part of the equation because we can't give if we're not full. Yeah. So we have to make sure that we are okay. And if that means that I've got to take 2 hours out today to have a nap or to go out for a walk or whatever, go for a facial, go for a run, whatever, go do that. And don't feel guilty about it because you know that when you are on top form, everything is so much easier. You're a better parent, you're a better wife, you handle problems easier. Everything just becomes easier. And it's not to say, oh, no, I've got to do these hours because, I took a 2 hour lunch today, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I've got to make, how is that going to make you feel if you do that whole check and balances with yourself? It's kind of, look, I enjoyed it. Had a really good conversation, made me feel so much better. And actually, I'm just going to shut up shop now. I don't want to do any more because today is the first day in a long time in the UK that we've had sun. So I'm going to go out and go for a walk. And that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. That was so amazing. Thank you so much, Doris. You shared so many amazing things. I'm so grateful for that. Before we leave, tell us where we can connect with you on LinkedIn or Instagram, or what's your website?
Yeah, my company is called Happy Bunny Coaching. So on the website is happybunny.coach. If you search him up by Doris Walsh on LinkedIn or Instagram, you'll find me. And if there's anyone who wants to come in for a chat, I'd be very open to that.
Thank you so much, Doris. Enjoy your day. Enjoy the sun.
Thank you very much for your time, Nina.
Thank you.